Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States, passed away on December 26, 1972, at the age of 88. But his funeral was not what many expected. There was no grand procession down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. Instead, the final chapters of Truman's life played out in a small Missouri town filled with private moments, secret tributes, and even a few last-minute panics. Today, we are opening the archives to look at the death and funeral of Harry S. Truman. We will review seldom seen footage, pictures, and audio of the solemn event today on Generations Found. Truman's final journey began on December 5th when he was admitted to Research Hospital in Kansas City with lung congestion. For 22 days, the former president fought. His daughter Margaret even noted that he was being stubborn with his doctors, a sign she called his "give 'em hell" spirit returning. This article that we're looking at right now is from December 20th, 1972. It states that the former president remained in a very serious condition at Research Hospital in Kansas City. The 88-year-old Truman's condition was described as generally unchanged. There was a fear of Truman entering into a uremic coma. I'm not a doctor, but this type of coma is a life-threatening, severe manifestation that occurs when advanced kidney failure causes a toxic accumulation of waste products. Sadly, his health took a turn. Heart and kidney issues followed, and on the morning of December 26, just a day after Christmas, Truman passed away. Immediate plans for a massive state funeral in Washington, D.C. were discussed, but Truman's wife, Bess, made a firm decision: keep it simple. Out of respect for her wishes and Truman's own request, the funeral stayed in Independence, Missouri. Truman once famously said, "I would like to be buried out there. I want to be out there so I can get up and walk into my office if I want to." On December 27th, his body was moved to the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library in Independence, Missouri. As the motorcade passed the Trumans' home, Bess Truman watched from the window. When they arrived at the library, 21 Air Force jets roared overhead. The 5th Army Band played "Hail to the Chief," and the casket was carried inside. Before we continue with the funeral, here's a little fun side note about Truman. He wasn't just a politician who served. He remains the only U.S. president to have seen actual combat during World War I, and he almost didn't make it there. Truman's eyesight was so poor, he was technically ineligible for service, but Harry wanted in. He famously memorized the entire eye chart before his physical, reciting the letters from memory to trick the doctors. By 1918, he was Captain Harry, commanding Battery D of the 129th Field Artillery. This wasn't a desk job. He led his men through one of the bloodiest campaigns in American history. Before he was the leader of the free world, Harry Truman was a veteran looking for a fresh start. In 1919, he teamed up with his wartime buddy, Eddie Jacobson, to open a haberdashery in the heart of Kansas City. A haberdashery in America was a high-end men's clothing store. For a brief moment, Truman and Jacobson was the local hotspot, a social hub where veterans gather to buy silk ties, Panama hats, and shirt collars. It was a business built on handshakes and wartime loyalty. And their first year, the shop was a roaring success. But the post-war boom didn't last. By 1922, an economic recession crashed the local farming economy, and the shop was forced to close its doors. Truman was left nearly bankrupt, carrying a mountain of personal debt that would take him 15 years to fully pay off. While political rivals would later sneer at him as a failed haberdasher, Truman wore the label like a badge of honor. He believed that losing his shirt in the retail world taught him more about the struggles of everyday Americans than any law degree ever could. The store at 106 West 12th Street, Kansas City, Missouri, is now the site of the stunning Hotel Phillips, a historic 217-room hotel which opened in 1931. During Truman's day on the site, it was occupied by the Glennon Hotel. So let's get back to the funeral. If you look closely at the archival photos, you will notice something unique. The American flag draped over his casket only has 48 stars. Even though he died in 1972, this was a special tribute to the 48 states that made up the Union during his presidency. But getting that casket inside led to what historians call the doorway crisis. The military honor guard realized at the very last second that the library's front door were too narrow for the casket and the 8 pallbearers to walk through together. Sergeant Lyle Gray had to quickly direct the team to maneuver the heavy casket inside while staying perfectly professional for the cameras and watching President Nixon. Speaking of Nixon, his attendance was complicated. Truman famously disliked Nixon, once calling him a no-good lying bastard. While Nixon and former President Lyndon B. Johnson came to pay their respects while Truman's laying in state, the family arranged for the actual funeral the next day to be private, effectively ensuring Nixon would not be at the main service. Listen to this original radio broadcast from that day. You can hear the somber tone as the news interrupts regular music to report on the arrival of the casket.
"9:07 on Nightside. I'm Army Specialist Bob Meyer for Christovala on vacation. At this time, we're going to join Group W News in Independence, Missouri.
Troops still standing at rigid attention. You can see the red, white, and blue American flag waving in a breeze just behind the hearse. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and United States Coast Guard enlisted men lining the steps to the library. The library, you will remember, was built by public prescriptions after Mr. Truman left the White House. He engaged in a very strenuous fundraising campaign, traveling all over the country, making speeches. There's a cornerstone on the library saying that my presidential papers will belong to the American public, as it should be. Signed, Harry Truman. He left more than 400 filing cabinets filled with the documents of his office, a rich warehouse of information for both scholars and ordinary citizens. Casket team now preparing to remove the casket. It will be taken a distance of about 30 yards, up 2 levels of steps, and then through large glass doors into the lobby of the Truman Library. The 5th Army Band, which is headquartered at Fort Sam Houston in Texas, will play Ruffles and Flourishes and Hail to the Chief, the 2 presidential marches, which, of course, President Truman became very familiar with during his years in office. And they will also play the National Emblem March as the casket is escorted into the library. The casket to be preceded by the color guard, the clergyman, and the special military honor guard consisting of general officers and admirals. The weather is unusually good for Missouri in December. Many of the people who came to the library have been able to remove their top coats, stand bareheaded. Now the crowd has grown to what I would estimate 1 or perhaps as many as 2,000 people standing on the street outside the library. The ceremony had originally been scheduled to be part of a 5-day funeral observance, customary for the death of an ex-president, but members of the Truman family had requested that it be cut short to 2 days, mainly out of deference to the health of Mrs. Bess Truman. Somehow it seems fitting, however, that President Truman, who maintained many of the traits of the common man throughout his years in the White House, who always classified himself as just another American citizen, would have a simple ceremony, a dignified but plain ceremony to mark his passing. In all, 3,000 federal troops are in Independence, providing the security arrangements and the necessary arrangements for the funeral ceremony and also for today's lying in state ceremony. Many of the roads in the city cordoned off. Of course, nearly 900 troops lined the motorcade route from the funeral home to the library. Each soldier or sailor or Coast Guardsman or Marine snapping to attention and saluting as the body of the late Commander-in-Chief passed by. Independence was the city that Mr. Truman always come back to, despite whatever political victories he might have won or defeats he may have suffered, and he was defeated once here in running for local office. It is now a town of about 116,000 people. It has often been referred to by historians as a small town, but really it's the 3rd largest city in Missouri, the county seat for Jackson County, and it was, of course, in the Jackson County government that Mr. Truman got his start in elective office, serving as a county judge, which is a job equivalent to a county commissioner. And he's still remembered here for the spectacular improvements that were made in the area of public works during the time that Harry Truman was on the county court. $6 million road project concluded at a time when highways were an unusual task for government. He built the new courthouse and was, in fact, a little bit hesitant about leaving county government to run for the Senate because he felt that he wanted the courthouse to be completed here in independence. Now the casket team is moving to the hearse, marching in the very slow 60 steps per minute beat, one half the cadence usually used by military troops. And the commander of troops ordering, present arms, and now hail to the chief. And the firing of the 21-gun salute. Later on today, of course, the President of the United States, Richard Nixon, will come to this library to place a wreath near the casket, a symbol of respect from the American people. And also, the only living former President of the United States now, Lyndon Johnson, is flying in from Texas, and he will pay his respects both here at the library and then at the Truman home. Margaret Truman, Daniel, her husband, and 4 children now entering the library, accompanied by security men, and now the remaining Truman relatives. There are no plans for Mr. Nixon to meet with Mr. Johnson while the two men are in Independence. However, Randall Jesse, the family spokesman for the Trumans, said that it would not be impossible that the two men would meet either here at the library or later when they are paying their respects to Mrs. Truman. President Nixon was last here in Independence 3 years ago when he presented a piano from the White House to Mr. Truman for placement in the library. Of course, Mr. Truman and Mr. Nixon had their moments of political rivalry over the years, but appeared to get along quite well during their last visit. Mr. Truman, of course, often said that he held great respect for the office of the presidency and would do everything he could to support the president no matter who he was.
Well, that seldom heard military radio broadcast was definitely a rare treat. Much of the rare footage we have today exists thanks to a 15-year-old boy named John Pritchard. He used his new Super 8 camera to film the event, and his home movies are now a vital part of the National Archives. I am not sure if any of what we are seeing is part of John's footage. Inside the library, there was a rare 5-minute Masonic tribute. Truman had been a Grand Master of the Masons, and even though government protocol was strict, they allowed this short ritual to honor his lifelong brotherhood. During the actual service, Bess Truman requested to sit behind a curtain. She wanted to mourn her husband of 53 years in private, away from the eyes of the 250 invited guests, which included famous Missouri artist Thomas Hart Benton and advisor Clark Clifton. While the Missouri service was private, Washington, D.C. did hold its own memorial a week later on January 5, 1973. Nearly 2,000 people filled the National Cathedral, including leaders from Israel, South Korea, and Ireland. It was a grand goodbye for the fearless son of simple soil. Harry Truman's funeral was just like the man himself, humble, slightly stubborn, and deeply rooted in the heart of America. Thank you for joining us today. We invite you to watch all our videos from famous funerals to diving into the archives to find generations of history. And always please remember to be kind in everything you do, including the comments you make.